Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, As-salatu As-salam ala Sayyid al-Mursaleen, wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum, participants, Dr. Rice, and our Need Trust members, welcome for our another exciting webinar on the role of fatherhood in parenting a child. A very, very important topic in modern day. And we're very pleased to have very pleased to have Dr. Rice Musthafa here, who is a leading figure in our community. And Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, I will say a little bit about him in a minute, but he has been a source of inspiration for the Muslim community, not only here, but also worldwide as well. So thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Rice, today. Just like to give you a little context in terms of why we are doing, all these seminars that is focusing on parenting. And as I continue to mention, that one of the key things that we're trying to actually develop in our community, not only just for the Muslim community, but for the wider humanity at large, because as Muslims, our role is not only for the Muslim community. We are here for the whole of creation, Alameen, because Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is no longer here. We have to carry that message. We have to continue with that word. So therefore, what we're trying to actually develop is this whole idea and the notion of integrated transformative education. And parents play a pivotal role in this model. Of course, there are teachers, of course, there's curriculum, of course, the institution, the educational institution, and of course, the wider community. But the first people who play that role of transformative education are the parents. And so therefore, we want to actually develop this whole notion of parenthood and effective parenthood in line with Islamic teaching, and how that can actually impact the development of our children so that they grow up to what we often call al-insan al-kamil. And Allama Iqbal, rahimahullah, refers to as, mad the mu'min, so as someone who is a pious Muslim. But that can only come from this whole idea of transformative education and integrated at the same time, because, we don't want our children to be growing up with a very dichotomized mindset, thinking that, one thing is Islamic and other things is not. And then they're always there's conflicting messages. And as a result of that, they suffer from identity crisis. So it is about actually developing a narrative that actually is integrated, that is transformative, and hopefully we will, as an outcome, we will see children that are that will demonstrate characteristics of a walking angel. So today's session is about a role of fatherhood in parenting. Now, fatherhood, as you know, is a significant role, and Dr. Rice will actually explore that concept from different angles. But I'd just like to say something a little bit about the importance of this role. I mean, I've been a teacher over now almost 20 years, and been involved with various academies and things like that. And I have to say that whenever we see children displaying behaviors that is out of ordinary, we often find there's one key figure that is missing in their life, and often it's the father. And because of that, we find both for boys and girls, we often find that when the father figure is missing, we find that the children behave in a certain way. And therefore, then we have to develop strategies to manage that. So Dr. Rice is going to explore a little bit more on those areas, and I'm sure you will be able to get a great insight, both from scientific perspective as well as from the Islamic teaching perspective. Dr. Rice is a doctor by profession, and he works in Harley Street. And alhamdulillah, he's got a wealth of scientific background on that. Is also a leader of the Muslim community, the Sri Lankan Muslim community in the UK, and has been working both here in the UK, in Sri Lanka, and in other countries, and in particular in the field of education. He is very passionate about this idea of transformative education. Alhamdulillah, he has established some very, very successful institutions, both in Sri Lanka as well as here in the UK. And he's developing this vision and driving this vision forward through these seminars. And so today, we are very pleased to have him here. And I'd like to welcome Dr. Rice for his support to Nida Trust and for running this webinar. So Dr. Rice, welcome. This is now your turn.
Jazakallah khair, Brother Fawzil, for that very generous introduction. And assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters who are participating through Zoom. So I think we are going to discuss this, the very, very important topic, as Brother Fawzil mentioned, is the fatherhood in parenting a child. It's not only parenting, it's, as I said, as the word Fawzil said, it's transformation. So it is if you are dreaming about integrated transformation or transformation in education, and it is the major part should be played by the fathers. So I think it's the parents' involvement is so important. We all know that. I'm going to talk to you about this parental involvement, particularly fatherhood involvement in bringing up a child and in transformation of a child. So my approach is going to be in a multi-angle. So I would say that as a pediatrician, I'm a consultant pediatrician. So I've been working working as a pediatrician in different settings, both in Sri Lanka. I'm originally from Sri Lanka, but I've been living in the UK for the last 17, 18 years. So, but I still work very closely with the communities and in a local communities in different parts of the world. So as a pediatrician, I have so far seen more than 200,000 children. When I say that I have seen 200,000 children, that means 200,000 families, because the children never come alone. They all come with the families. So I deal with the families. So I have my personal experience in this regard, and how the children get transformed when there is a parental involvement, and when it is not there, how the children behave. As Brother Fawzil mentioned, that as a teacher for the last 20 years, he has seen many transformation with children behavior, and that can be easily connected to the absence of the father figure. So it is now, we have been talking about this integrated transformative education. It's not only the education, but if you are to transform a person, it should be a total interaction and involvement with the children that we should do. Say, we'll take the examples of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam never had a student, right? He never had a student. He never had a follower. He never had a disciple. He had only sahabas, companions. You see, so the getting our children and our friends and our community members as a companion is the way forward for transformation. That's the fundamental, I think, because that is what we learn from Sirah. So I think what we should do is not the teacher-student relationship, right? It's not the leader-follower relationship, or it's not the sheikh-disciple relationship. It's the companionship, right? So we need to be very interactive with our children. We had to involve with them, and we had to be very friendly with them, right? And so that is what needed for the transformation of anything, transformation of ideas, transformation of values, transformation of philosophies, right? So that is exactly what we wanted to do, right? Now, when it comes to fatherhood, I'm going to approach this with a different angle. One is as a pediatrician, as a child development perspective, then of course the child behavior, and so how would the fatherhood affect the child's behavior and all that. So it could be a medical aspect will be there, some psychosocial aspects, and more importantly, I remain a student of the Quran for the last 30, 35 years. I still remain a student of the Quran, of course, until our last breath. And I find that amazing stuff in relation to fatherhood. I find at least 4 fathers in the Quran mentioning 4 fathers. It is Father Luqman alayhi salam, or Father Yaqub alayhi salam, or Father Nuh alayhi salam, Father Ismail alayhi salam. So all these are the father figures that we see in the Quran, and their fatherhood is quite complex. Some had easy fatherhood. Luqman alayhi salam had a very easy fatherhood, as you can see. But of course, we don't see the response of the son in that Surah Luqman, in that passage. Whereas Nuh alayhi salam had a very difficult fatherhood. But still, he approached the fatherhood. So in the context of a difficult fatherhood, how Nuh alayhi salam worked, what was his approach? I think there are a few words to talk about that. And also, Yaqub alayhi salam had a very mixed fatherhood, where he had some, he was having Yusuf alayhi salam as a son, and Bunyamin, and also the other sons who had some issues, right? So it's a bit of a complex problem with sibling rivalry and all that. So these are the Quranic views, that was things that we can study and we see in the Quran. And also now in nature, you see some fathers, right? But there are miraculous, there are signs in the nature that Allah talks to us to see that and learn lessons. So the Quran talks about that, and we see that in the nature, in the creations of Allah in our blue planet. So these are the ways that we are going to approach. Of course, we have 2 sessions. Today we'll have a session 1, and then hopefully by the next session, then we should be able to finish that. Okay, so let me start with this. When I say fatherhood, actually, it is not is not a position, right? So when you say what is fatherhood, it's not a position, it's a responsibility. So what I'm trying to say with that is not every father is applying the fatherhood or taking the responsibility of fatherhood. There are many fathers, they are just by name of their father, but there's no fatherhood in the father. These are 2 totally different things. Just because we become a father, it doesn't mean that we are carrying that, that responsibility of fatherhood. These are 2 different things. Now I can see in the Quran, fatherhood is celebrated, right? Because in the Surah Luqman, it is the entire Quran, the surah is named after him. That is Luqman. Who is Luqman? Luqman is somebody, he's not a prophet, he's not a son of a prophet, he's not a father of a prophet, nothing. There's no profile. The only profile that he had was he was one of the best father. That's it. So they see the Quran, I see that as a celebration. If we are having a good fatherhood, and if we apply our responsibility, we take our responsibility, I think that is a position that we can celebrate. That is the position Quran celebrates, right? The position of a father is not an automatic thing, but you can, well, father is an automatic thing. If we have a child, we become a father, so that is not a big thing. But of course, the fatherhood is something, it's not automatic. We need to earn that. We need to earn that. Because we have that fatherhood takes a lot of responsibility, and unless we earn that, is not going to be the fatherhood. It is like this, we are fathers, but we need to wear the crown of the fatherhood. So not every father is wearing that crown of fatherhood. We should earn that crown and wear it. Then only we can have a beautiful family, and will achieve children who who becomes very successful. Actually, there is as Brother Fawzul mentioned, there's an involvement of the parent and the achievement of children and the behavior of children. There's a very direct connection to that. One of my wife was doing a master degrees in Northampton University about teenagers and adolescent mental health and psychology. So in that master degree, that was a 2-year master degree, the thesis that she submitted was this. The title of the thesis was Parental Involvement and Academic Achievement of Children. And in that thesis, before her thesis, there have been lots of studies done on that. There have been PhDs done on that, and people have found direct relationship with the parental involvement and academic achievement of children. In her study also, she very clearly proved that when there is a parental involvement, the academic achievement of children is very significantly increased. So it's not only the academic achievement is an overall development of a child. Right? If we have the proper fatherhood, if we take the responsibility of the fatherhood, I think we can see the changes in life of our children and in our families too. The important thing here is when you say fatherhood, it's like it's like I like to get this slide to talk about the fatherhood. This one. This fatherhood is a responsibility, as I said, right? See, now fatherhood is not just you being a father, you taking a responsibility. Now see, in this slide, you can see that this father is has opened an umbrella, right? And keeping his the family under that. So it's a responsibility. Now he holds that umbrella, and that suppose just imagine that you are going through it is raining, and it's you don't want to get the family, children and wife and our children get wet. So you open an umbrella, you are protecting the family, you are hugging them, you are very close to them, you are hugging them, you are just moving with them to a safer place at home. So that is, but you are the person holding the umbrella, opening the umbrella and protecting the family from rains or from very hot sun or whatever. So it is the umbrella that you are holding to protect the family. That is the fatherhood. You are father, everyone is father, but unfortunately not all fathers are ready to carry that umbrella. Not all fathers are giving that protection to their family by opening the umbrella and holding it with responsibility. Very unfortunately, many fathers are not doing that. Now, as you can see in the Quran, it says, Ar-rijalu qawwamuna 'ala nisa. So this, as a men, we are responsible over the women. It's not we are having authority over women. I know that some translations translate it as men have the authority over women, but it's a wrong translation according to many mufassirun. It is the responsibility actually. Awam is you are responsible. When they are falling, you are responsible to get them straight up, right? If you are in need, you are responsible to supply their needs. So like that. So this, that umbrella is the fatherhood actually. So that comes the fatherhood starts with respecting, because when the fatherhood starts with respecting and loving the mother of the child. I'm not saying your wife, right? Because we are talking about the fatherhood, right? So forget about the relation, the wife position to a side. But of course, what we need to know is that now if we are keen to play the fatherhood responsibility, that is for our children, and one of the first criteria to be a nice to maintain the right fatherhood is to love and respect the mother of our children. So obviously we need to love and respect our wife, because loving and respecting is so important to our wife. Because what happens is, there was some study, and I can tell you, there is a book called uh, you know rearing bringing up, I think it's rearing positive kids in a negative world, right? It is by Zig Ziglar. So it's a nice book. If you could buy that from Amazon, raising positive kids in a negative world. I think that's a book by Zig Ziglar. So in that book, he says, um, uh, now the most important thing that you can give to your son, your daughters, your children, or if you want to make them happy, right? Now you would have done lots of things to your children. You would have spent lots of money. You would have spent your time and your energy to do lots of things to your children. But more than what you do to your children, what the children value is what you do to their mother. That is our wife. So in Zig Ziglar's book, he says that he asked his son, right? No, he said that I'm a good father. Yes, I'm a nice father. I have done a lot. I have sacrificed for you all, and I have spent a lot of money for you all, and done everything. So what of my my behavior, or my say that his question was, what do you value more as a father? Then the answer was that we like you because you love our mother, you respect our mother. See, that is the most important thing that to give to our children. They won't tell you. Now, if you are scolding our wife, or if we are having a fight with our wife, or if we're becoming very aggressive with them, or it is vice versa. Even the mothers also to the father is not just father to the mother side. It's a both way. Then they may not tell you anything, but they get affected. They're psychologically damaged. I've seen so many damaged children like that. They become very hyperactive. They become this. They show bad behavior in the schools and in other places. So this is very important. Fatherhood, as I said, the fatherhood begins with loving and respecting our wife. And the responsible fatherhood, it embraces the entire nuclear family. So how you look after our wife, how you look after our children. So it is the fatherhood is, as I said earlier, it is the umbrella that you carry to protect them from the rain and from the hot, the sun, and everything. So that responsibility, it covers, embraces the entire nuclear family. Being father is a simple thing. You don't need anything to be a father, to be honest. Just your children, our mothers deliver their children and you become father. But fatherhood is very challenging. I mean, if we take that responsibility, so it's again and again, I'm telling you this is the responsibility that comes with the fatherhood. So responsible for what? They're responsible to spend quality time with children, responsible to love our children unconditionally. I'm highlighting that, unconditionally. And also, the more than the love, they all need respect, right? The way we communicate, the way we address them, the way we, our behaviors, our tone of the language, the words that we use. These are all very important. Now, if you go to the Quranic fatherhood traits that we will come probably the next class, there you find that how you have to communicate, what should be the tone of the communication, what should be the choice of words when we talk to our children. So these are all clearly mentioned in the Quran. So we'll come to that with the next one. But at the moment, at this time, what I'm trying to say is it is really challenging. We need to have a complete involvement to have a good fatherhood. So it's a fatherhood involves transformation of heart and mindset, right? So we need to change. Now, with our traditional practice, now what we have seen, now when I conduct these parenting seminars, I do a lot of parenting seminars in all over the place. So some parents ask, that our parents brought us with very strict rules. They hit us, they scolded us, they did, and but still we are okay. So if you say that, you should not hit the children, you should not scold the children, if you give so much love and respect, they get spoiled. So these are the arguments, but I would say that these are the cultural arguments. There's no a philosophical basis to that, and there's no Quranic basis to that. There's no scientific basics to that. These are all cultural arguments. So we don't have to go to that cultural argument. We should transform ourselves based on the Quranic science, Quranic philosophies, Quranic teaching, and the contemporary psychological and medical science. So that's what we want to do. Now, the ultimate outcome of a child, our children, is determined by fatherhood. I will give you lots of scientific studies on that as we go. So the fatherhood actually prevents many psychosocial destruction in children. Now, there are lots of studies, particularly in psychological journals. I went through lots of medical psychological journals, and there are so many studies where they have found the father figure. So when there is a father figure in the family, the children's behavior is not only they are academically achieved, their behavior is very strong. They are very disciplined children. They are very strong children, right? There are so many things. It will come as we go. But if you put it in one word, the outcome of children in our family become outstanding if we apply the real fatherhood, or if we take the fatherhood responsibility, if we can carry that umbrella to protect and transform our family, and to wear the cap of the crown of fatherhood in our heads. So we are all fathers. We are already there. The base is there. But what we need to do is that we need to earn that fatherhood. We need to learn that fatherhood responsibilities. We need to, actually, it's a science. You need to learn that. There's a skill. You need to learn that, right? So it's learning it, and then you take the responsibility, wear the fatherhood, the crown, and then, of course, we will see the changes in children. So, and it's when you apply the real fatherhood, it nurtures and unfolds children. As we know, every child is born with lots of potential and talent. It's like a seed. See, the seed is already packed with DNA, with all the potential. So similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he gave us our children, right, they are already packed. Their talents are already packed like a seed, right? So what we need to do is, that is called fitra. What we need to do is to unfold them. You give the right environment, not to mold them, but to unfold them. You don't have to mold them, right? Because if you try to mold them, then you will mold to the way that you wanted to mold. But that is not the way that it is expected. Actually, what we should do is, we should not mold our children. We should allow them to unfold their already packed talents and their potentials, which is given individually by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to them. So what we need to do is, we need to create the environment, right? A nurturing environment for allowing them to unfold. It's like planting a seed, right? Now, if you plant a seed in a desert, it's not going to grow. But if you plant the seed in a very fertile ground, it will grow. So it is not the problem with the seed, it's the problem with the choice of your environment that you decided to give to that seed. So however much the potential the children have, if you don't have the nurturing environment, that seed is not going to grow. So similarly, so now what has happened is, we have put our children it's like planting the seed in a desert environment. We have children with lots of potentials, lots of talents. They have their fitra that is given to them by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if we are not giving a nurturing environment by being involved parents, being a involved fatherhood, taking the fatherhood responsibilities, by giving them quality time, by giving them good communication, by applying the what is called wisdom parenting that is mentioned in the Quran. If we do that, then of course it's like a nurturing ground, a fertile ground to a seed that will grow. There's be water there. Then, but in a desert land, there's no water. So similarly, just like the water that is needed for a seed, a child needs a loving environment. The child needs love and emotional attachment. See, so these are the things that is very important. I remember when I say this, I met a child, a street child actually, was a child picked up by one of a parent when they were going on in a desert, not the desert, it's a jungle area. It was an abandoned street child, right? I didn't know that this child was an abandoned street child, because when they approached me, they said that the child is was chased out of the classroom in year 2, he was 6, 7 years old. He's extremely hyperactive. He's not educatable, right? And his behavior is so difficult that the school couldn't manage, and they sent him home. And the father and the mother brought this child to me in one of my clinic or some program, I think. So this particular child was then I asked them, because when you have a child who is not behaving hyperactive, there is only one reason for that. I mean, fundamentally, there's only one reason for a child to become hyperactive, bad behaviors and all that. You know what? Only one reason, fundamentally, that is the child's brain is not stimulated enough. That's the reason for that. The brain is not stimulated enough. So why the child's brain is not stimulated enough? There are many reasons for that. It could be a birth problem where the child brain is fundamentally wrong, where it cannot be stimulated. Any birth trauma, lack of oxygen at the time of birth, and things like that. Or it could be some trauma to the child that prevented the child's brain growth, particularly emotional trauma. But just like our brain, our brain to grow, the brain needs to be charged. We're charged with what? We're charged with emotions, love, respect. That is what the neuroscience say. That is what the Quran says. So this particular child was, then I asked the family, how did the child, was the child born? Then they said, the mother said, I don't know. Then only I realized, so you don't know means it's not your child? Then she said, no, it's not my child. This child, then they told the story of that they picked up this child from road in one of a jungle area in Sri Lanka. This was actually. So, see, because this child was left on the road at the age of around 4 or 5 years old, right? So if a family is to such an extent, taking decision to put the child on the road and go away, so just imagine the family circumstances and the family background, how much love and respect the child would have had. What is the fatherhood of that father of the child? See, so this is a very, 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 very simple scientific fact, right? So unless we give the love, respect, and nurture the child, then the seed is not going to grow. So that we can see. So it is the fatherhood. The father is responsible for that. Of course, the mothers are also involved, but the father is mainly responsible for that. The fatherhood actually empowers motherhood too, right? As I said that we are rijalu qawwamuna ala nisa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala very clearly says He is giving us, the fathers, the responsibility of supporting the mothers too, supporting nisa, all the women around us. It could be our mothers, or it could be our wives, our daughters, our sisters, right? All women around us, we are responsible, right? So again, this is how Allah is giving us. It's not that we are the authority for them, we are responsible for them. That is, we need to get that the word qawwam very clearly understood. So as I said, the fatherhood, if we apply the real proper fatherhood, that empowers the nuclear family unit, that will empower our wife, the mother of the children, and that will empower our children. So the fatherhood, if we apply that fatherhood, that will properly, not being a father, but being the responsible fatherhood we apply in a family, you can see that our family will be a very happy family, as we see in Surah Al-Furqan, right? The word Quran, the Surah, the Furqan uses is Qurrat Ayun, right? So the Qurrat Ayun, the coolness to the eyes is, that is what expected from a family, in a family of Ibadur Rahman. So these are the, the people of Allah's, the servants of Allah, very close servant of Allah. Their family will be very cool to the eyes, very pleasurable family. That it's very beautifully described in that word Qurrat Ayun. That means if you see our children, our eyes become cool. But unfortunately, now in many families, we see the friction and the problem. The eyes become warm to many fathers. Very unfortunate. Why the eyes become warm in many fathers is, mainly that we have not taken over the fatherhood responsibility, and we have not done the parenting that Luqman alayhi salam did. Now he has given the fundamental teachings of the Quran, fundamental philosophies of Islam, the values of Islam, principles of Islam, and the way he was dealing with the children is psychologically so amazing. I think we need to study that, so that as we go, inshallah, we can do that. So it is the now, as I said, that Quran celebrates and science confirms. Quran celebrates fatherhood, and the science confirms the fatherhood, right? The importance of the fatherhood. There is a motherhood is also mentioned in the Quran, but I don't see it is celebrated. Allah talks about the sacrifices of the mothers. Allah says, حَمَلَتْهُ أُمُّهُ وَهْنًا عَلَى وَهْنٍ وَفِصَالُهُ فِي عَامَيْنِ. So your mother carried you, carried him, عَمَلَتْهُ أُمُّهُ وَهْنًا عَلَى وَهْنٍ. Weakness over weakness, right? So there are many, in other places also, Allah talks about the sacrifices of the mother. But when it comes to the parenting, the mothers are not mentioned. When it comes to the parenting, it's the mothers. There is something in Maryam's story about the Maryam's mother saying that she says that what is in my tummy, I have given to you, and this and that. So it's in Surah Al Imran. There is a little bit of mentioning about the Maryam's mother, but I don't see that as celebrated. But if you take Surah Luqman, the way that the Luqman is being celebrated as a title of that surah, and also there's an entire passage talking about what are the fundamentals of parenting, and how should it is not only the fundamentals of parenting, how you should do it. Is these the very some selected words in that passage that talks lots of things about the parenting. So the Quran celebrates it, but the science confirms it. The science confirms that it is the fatherhood that is more important, and of course along with the motherhood's sacrifices. There are many fathers with committed fatherhood in a different parenting context. You see it in the Quran. Luqman alayhi salam, as I said, Ibrahim, Yaqub, Nuh alayhi salam. Although Quran talks about the sacrifices of the mothers, it is the fatherhood that is celebrated. As I said, fatherhood is a profession. It requires knowledge, skills, right mindset, and many more. So it should be learned and practiced. So what I'm trying to say is, this is an opening. We can't just learn about the fatherhood in one or two seminars. It is a process. We need to develop this culture of having the responsible fatherhood. So we need to learn more and more and practice and see how how it can be done. I can tell you. So in Leicester, we were conducting this program to selecting about 25 parents, and conducted these wisdom parenting seminars and Quranic parenting side. And so we are continuing that. And what the feedback I got is that since they started practicing what is mentioned in the Quran as Luqman's parenting and other parenting as well, it's called wisdom parenting. They have seen an amazing change in their families. The children behavior has improved, their happiness have improved, the husband-wife relationship have improved. So these are there in the Quran. So only thing is we need to take it and practice. That's it. Very simple as that. So we need to, it is in a process. We need to take some effort, and in that process, I'm sure that we can succeed if we do that, inshallah. So there are hundreds of scientific research suggest the influence and the impact of fatherhood in children. Now, so with that, I think I have some scientific studies I'm going to share from these slides onwards. So I just wondered whether the matters that we have discussed so far, is there anything to anybody to comment or any questions particularly before we go to the next step in this webinar. The next step is I'm going to show you some scientific and psychological studies about the homosexual behavior and other, children becoming, convicted prisoners, and why it happens with that relationship with the fatherhood. There are lots of scientific studies. I'm going to share a few studies with you all. So before that, if you have anything before we get into this subject, I think it's about a few minutes if we can discuss the things that we have already discussed.
Thank you, Dr. Saab. I think there's one question from one person, is that if there's no mother responsibility in parenting, why it says mother is the best teacher?
No, I'm not saying that there's no mother responsibility. I didn't say that. What I said was the fatherhood is celebrated and the mother is also equally responsible. But when you talk to the Quran, when you study the Quran, the motherhood is mentioned, the mother's sacrifice is mentioned, and mother's involvement is mentioned, particularly with with bringing up of Maryam alayhi salam. It is there. But what happens is, in our context, is particularly in Asian context and Asian people, and in Muslim culture, the mother takes the entire responsibility in parenting. Most of the families, I'm sorry, and there can be some exception, of course, but in most families, father is somebody who earns money and he comes home and he's just a non-paying guest at home. He is not much involved. So the responsibility taken by mothers are more than the fathers, and many fathers don't take the responsibility, although they are I mean, the responsibility of the proper fatherhood. So the mothers are also responsible, but I'm saying that the main responsibility of the fatherhood should be taken by the father. So that has a great impact on bringing up children. But of course, now when it comes to the parenting, it is the motherhood and the fatherhood both together is responsible. But the fatherhood has very strong power. I don't know, because there are not much, there are some studies about the motherhood too, but there are lots of studies in related to the fatherhood. So I didn't say that the motherhood is not responsible. I said the fathers have more responsibility. That's what I see based on this. When I learn as a student of the Quran, I see that in the Quran, and as a consultant of the children development and psychology and the childhood and pediatrics, I see in lots of scientific medical articles.
Right. Interesting, Dr. Saab. You are putting so much pressure on us fathers now. Okay, that's it. We're going to be scared.
We
Well,
have to take it. Yes.
so, okay, I'm just going to take one more comment, and then there are lots of written questions that are coming through. Can I just say to everyone that Dr. Rice will finish in about next 15-20 minutes his presentation, and then after that we will have we'll have maybe an extended period of question and answers. However, after about 20 minutes, your hour will be over. If people want to leave, you're welcome to go, but we will keep it open for another half an hour for question and answers after about 20 minutes or so. So that there's no pressure for you to stay. You're welcome to go, but if you want to stay and continue this conversation, exciting conversation with Dr. Rice, then of course you're more than welcome to do so. So I'm going to now just ask Haji Idris to unmute himself. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome.
Wa alaikum salam.
Please make a comment, Haji Idris.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Firstly to Faisal and Nida Trust, Allah bless you for the great work you are doing, enriching us as parents, as teachers, and alhamdulillah, you're inviting great guests, alhamdulillah. So my not an issue really. Firstly, I want to commend the presenter for doing such an excellent job. I want to respond to two things very quickly. The one is the whole issue, parenting involves the active engagement of both the mother and the father. And it is the respective roles they need to play. And often, in my experience as a counselor here, there's often an absent father syndrome. And inshallah, I like to believe, inshallah, they would now do the work consciously and intentionality. But my question is the following, right? What is the whole aim of fatherhood? Is it to bring up men, people that are macho, courageous, or to bring up gentlemen? It's a very, very important distinction. I would like the presenter to share his insights, whether he sees a difference, number one, and what is more important, do you need gentlemen in Islam or you want men?
That's a good question, brother.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so I think, yes, I agree with you that the parenting is both mother's and the father's responsibility, right? But why we are reinforcing fatherhood here is for two reasons. One is we are talking about fatherhood. The second thing is motherhood is repeatedly mentioned and discussed in the past so many times, right? So people are aware of motherhood. Everybody knows about the motherhood. But the fatherhood is something that we need to talk about now, because it's not an active and dynamic subject to talk about. To such an extent, so you won't believe me, in a local, our tongue. Now, I was talking about this fatherhood. Then I asked, we know about one of the meeting, I asked them, okay, what is the mother? Everybody knows what is mother, right? Even the translation for the local language, they know. Motherhood, there's a word for that. There's a word for mother, there's a word for motherhood. There's a word for father, but there's no word for fatherhood, right? But of course, in Arabic, there's a word. But what I'm saying is in Tamil, I didn't find a word because this is my mother tongue. I asked an audience of people who all had the same mother tongue. Not a single person knew the meaning, the local mother tongue meaning of fatherhood. So that tells us this is not a subject for them. So this is not a subject. That is why there's they have not named this profession yet, right? So it is. So that is why we wanted to. Yes, of course, the motherhood is involved. Motherhood is responsibility is there. That is very important. We are not saying no, but here, because the fatherhood is not celebrated, right? Unlike the motherhood, and because the fatherhood is not discussed enough, because the fathers have not taken the responsibility of fatherhood, whereas the mothers have taken the responsibility of motherhood. See, now you see, you go to any school, if you call for a parents-teachers meeting, who turns up? It's the mothers. because the motherhood, they are showing their responsibility. But so what happened to the fathers? They are very busy, right? So is it the right thing to do? So that is what we wanted to discuss more on the motherhood. And the other thing is, what are the outcome of the child when they with a proper fatherhood? Is it a disciplined man, or dignified children? I think it's not that. It is the entire transformation, right? Transformation of, it's not that we are bringing up, see, there are studies done, as I said, that my wife's research also involve academic achievement of a children, but she focused only on that, the parental involvement and academic achievement of children. Is there any relationship? That is her master degree thesis. She found that yes, there's a definite relationship between the parental involvement and academic achievement of children. But what we are talking about here, the fatherhood, is not to increase the academic achievement of children. That's a side effect. That's a byproduct. But what is expected by the fatherhood is, if we first of all, we will come to with the next class, most likely, probably, the Quran gives you the traits of fatherhood. What qualities you should have as a father. The slide is already prepared. It is there, but it will come with probably the next seminar. So what are the traits? What are the criteria? What are the qualities and qualifications that you should have as a father? That is, it's not my criteria. It is the criteria mentioned in the Quran. So I will share those criteria. So if we have those qualification as expected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we become a father with wearing the fatherhood, taking the responsibility of fatherhood. And if we apply that fatherhood, what we see is not a disciplined child. You see a transformed child who is empowered, who is energized, who is ready to face the challenges of the world, who is ready, who is achieved a best in this world and best in the hereafter, right? And Luqman alayhi salam says, Ya bunayya aqimis salah wa'mur bil ma'ruf wanha anil munkar wasbir ala ma asabaka inna dhalika min azmil umur. What is that? That father says, oh my dear son, oh my dear respected, loving son. He didn't just say my son. He didn't call his name. He didn't call his son by name. He said, my dear, respected, loving son. That's the word Ya Bunayya is described. If you go into detail of this word Ya Bunayya, this is exactly very closest English translation is my dear, respected, loving son, right? No names. So we don't, what I feel is, I always suggest this to fathers, don't call your children by their name. Let the teacher call them by their name. Let his friends call by their name. But you are a father with fatherhood responsibility. Don't call by name. Call him beta. Call him my son. Call him very nice, loving words. So that is exactly what the father Luqman did. So the father Luqman said, he was preparing this son to be a commander, to be somebody who fights against injustice, somebody who is energized, empowered. So he lives for the betterment of his life, a peace and prosperous life for him. And also he contributes to nation building, right? This is exactly what happened. See, the father, Yaqub alayhi salam, he trained his son Yusuf only few years as a child, probably preschool age, right? But he gave everything that should be given during that time. And that helped him to become the leader of Misr, Egypt, and as a finance minister, and he was responsible for the development of that country. So this is transformation. It is the transformative change. So this transformative change, as we always say, it is, I'm not surprised. Yaqub alayhi salam had only, or Yusuf alayhi salam had only few years with Yaqub alayhi salam, the father, with a responsible fatherhood. But still, he did the foundation work so strong that made him, that he survived with that, whatever the father gave. Actually, even the medical science, psychological science says exactly the same thing, because your brain develops for 5 years. And if you prepare your child within the first 5-6 years of life, giving the fundamentals of Iman, the God consciousness, taqwa, and and giving a very close relationship, keeping your fatherhood responsibilities, practicing wisdom parenting as mentioned in the Quran, you will see amazing changes. It's not just a disciplined child. It's not just a child who is academically achieved. It's a transformed child who is, who live the best life in this world. And when Allah calls, Ya ayyatuhan nafsum mutmainna, oh the content souls, irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan marliya, fadkhuli fi ibadi, fadkhuli jannati. When Allah calls, oh my dear, servants, yudkhuli fi jannati, enter into my Jannah. So they should be confidently get up, walk up to that and enter. So this is the transformed children that we expect. So for that, it's only possible with a responsible fatherhood. That involves, of course, to make sure that the motherhood is also there. So I think that is exactly what is expected. So it is a transformed, it's a transformation, not just one aspect of development of a child. So that is what the wisdom parenting, the Quranic wisdom parenting is telling us. So when you go to the psychological, some magazines, some medical journals that I went through, I'll just briefly mention few cases here. So it says the lack of fatherhood is a known factor for homosexuality. Now we are coming to a very sensitive area. So now you know that we all have the problems of this homosexuality and LGBT problems and LGBTQ and X, what not, from A to Z now is going to come, right? So we are still only 5 English letters. We have this LGBTQ, and I don't know when is the 6, 7, 8 will be added. But as it is, the things are very fluid. There's no values, there's no philosophies, there's no fundamentals, right? All the morals are very fluid. It's so in that environment, it's going to be very difficult, right? The gender problem is becoming a serious problem. As we all know that in our country here, this homosexuality is now celebrated, right? Within the last few 20, 30 years, you see changes, but it's going to be more, right? So our children, even our children, the Muslim children with the faith and all that, with the iman, they say that yes, we can be a Muslim and we can be a homosexual. Yes, I'm not going to go into that argument, but what I'm trying to say is, I'm just quoting some studies, some scientific studies that are connected to this gender problem, is connected to fatherhood. So amazing. You can see all these studies. So I'm not, I'm just sharing these, the papers, scientific studies, so that you see. Now, if I don't want my son to be an homosexual, I don't want my son to marry another man. I don't want my daughter to say that, I don't want my son to say that my husband did this. This, I know there's one of a doctor, right? He, an Asian background, but they are from the UK. They live in the UK. That doctor, I know him. So apparently that doctor is an Asian man. So he married another English man, right? So, and after that, they both went to his parents' family, and then he went to meet his father, and he introduced his, instead of introducing his wife after marrying, he introduced his husband after marriage. So apparently at that point, the father developed a heart attack and died. So, these are the issues, because the father of that particular doctor, this is what I heard about that, but I didn't directly see that or not involved. But this is what in that our circle they were discussing this. So what I'm trying to say is, because it is why it happens. Yes, I'm not surprised, because when emotionally, when you are affected, so your heart can be literally, it can be broken. Now we say sometimes, I emotionally got affected. my heart is broken. We just say it as just, figuratively, but it's not just a figurative thing. It is literally, your heart can break with emotions. There's a cardiomyopathy. There's a heart failure called. There's a disease called Takotsubo cardiomyopathy. I don't know whether you all heard about this. Takotsubo cardiomyopathy. You can Google it and find out. Very interesting. Takotsubo cardiomyopathy is first described in Japan, where the heart, when there is an emotional trauma comes in, the heart can literally break, and it can dilate, and it can change the shape, the structure, physical structure, and becomes and it can dilate and becomes weak, and you can get a heart failure and you can die. So this happens. I have seen at least 2 cases of Takotsubo cardiomyopathy in my life. So these things happen. So it is so important that we need to, as a father, we need to know the challenges that we face, particularly in this context. So if we are ready to, unless we prepare ourselves, we learn and we earn our fatherhood, I think we'll be losing a lot of things, to without suffering with. I have seen even here, in the UK, in many my parents' seminars, I have seen parents, a father coming and crying. Once a father came, he said, "Doctor, I want to talk to you about 15 minutes." But he spent 3 hours with me because I couldn't, do anything, because he cried because he lost his 3 children. He lost for what? He lost this for this society where there was 3 children are deviated. Because on that day I was talking about a fatherhood. Then he came and cried for 3 hours, saying that I didn't do a single thing that you mentioned in this fatherhood. I didn't develop a single trait that you mentioned in the wisdom parenting, the Quranic. The Quran says that these are the qualifications you should have as a father. But he said that I didn't develop a single qualification that they mentioned in the Quran. So if we fail in our fatherhood, of course the children will get deviated and all that. We should take it. There's no other shortcut for that, right? So now one of the studies here, they say that one of the causes of homosexuality is the lack of normal childhood relations with the parents. Can you see that? This is a study is in 1946. They say that the homosexual tend to be, they have the mother it will be there, but the fathers are not there, right? They are identified with their mothers because the fathers are weak. Their mothers are the dominant character, right? So the psychoanalysts say that if there is only mother as a dominant character and the absence of fatherhood, this causes imbalance in the family. So the families are not just, it's not a simple thing. It's a structure we don't see, right? So it is, although it is not a physical, it is a physical structure, isn't it? So it is structure with lots of link between the father, mother. So these are the bond between father, mother, children, mother, children, father. So these links should be very strongly built with a structure. Unless that structure is strongly built and make a very strong concrete structure, there'll be imbalance. That imbalance will lead to your homosexuality. That's what this study says. Another study by the researcher West, he says that the combination of an over intense relationship with the mother and unsatisfactory relationship with the father is typical for the homosexuals. So if we are worried about this, the sexual orientation and the gender issues with our children, and if you don't want your child to come and tell you that I married him, or the daughter come and tell you that I married her, I think we have to take some very strong steps and some decisions we have to make and action we have to take to learn and earn our fatherhood. So then another study you can see here, the behavior of mothers of homosexuals towards their sons was seductive in some cases and overindulgent, domineering and inhibiting, while the behavior of their fathers was hostile, ambivalent, and indifferent. So that is another study shows that. There are hundreds of studies like that. This is very interesting. Lack of fatherhood is a known factor for homosexuality. In this study, another study in 1964, is the Air Force, this particularly the Air Force from US, they found that a higher proportion of homosexuals had in their childhood poor relations with their fathers, had been more attached to their mothers, though some had not got with their mothers either. So, in some cases, the mothers also had a problem. So he also reports that a number of homosexual patients were, now those days, of course, no, they say that they were studying a patient group, and they find that in the foster homes, so again, the difference is most of the homosexuals did not have normal relationship with their in their childhood with their father. So I can give you hundreds of studies like that, right? So this is British Journal of Psychiatry. See, if you see even the British Journal of Psychiatry is talking about that. This is a very, a scientific journal. I don't want to go deep into that, but I'm just showing that these are there in the scientific journals, right? And also they say that the fatherhood prevents deviated thoughts in children, right? So sexual deviation and the children, the girls become prematurely sexually becoming very active, and they're getting the girlfriend boyfriend problem. Even this has been there are studies say if we are very close to our daughters, if we are giving them the love and the respect, if we are hugging them, if we are kissing them as a father, right, from the childhood, from the day one, and if we are very close with them, right, if you are very close to them, then there won't be, or at least the boyfriend problem, these girlfriend problems will be minimized. As is particularly with the girls, they have found lots of studies that the girls, they mess up with the boyfriends, and they mess up with the life with the involving the boyfriends and extramarital and premarital, particularly the premarital sex with these girls and the boys' relationship. There is a direct link with the father's responsibility and the involvement with the daughter, and what happens, the outcome with this premarital sex and boyfriend relationship. So there are a lot of studies about that, right? And this is a very interesting thing. Let me talk about Bill Glass. I'm sure that some people may know this Bill Glass. He is a US NFL, National Football League star of 60s. He retired in 69, and he was the celebrity at that time. I was a very rich man. He's very, in late 60s and early 70s, he was very powerful man. So he had 4 decades of largest prison-only ministry. So what happened was, as a celebrity footballer, he realized that there are lots of lots of followers for him, and he, his words are very powerful. He's not only people like his play, not only he likes his sports and football, they are listening to him. His voice has the value and the power. So he thought that when I retire, I need to make sure that my celebrity status, I should do something positive. So he decided to meet the convicted prisoners and to change their life. So then he started, initially he started another charity, but of course they worked with the prisoners, and apparently the charity had more than 25,000 volunteers working force in that charity, such a big, huge charity. Now the charity is called Behind the Wall. You can check this in the Google and find a lot of information about that. Behind the Wall charity. Now he has said he has 4 decades, so he has been working with the prisoners, with particularly convicted prisoners. He said, I have been to more prisons than any living human, Bill Glass said. Also he said, I have talked to more inmates than anybody ever lived. It's true, because I mean he sacrificed his entire life talking to prisoners and the convicted prisoners rehabilitation program. He said, this is the most important point. He said, I have never met an inmate who loved his father. Right? He said, I have met thousands of prisoners, convicted prisoners. I've visited hundreds of prisons, but I never met a prisoner who loved his father. I think this gives you lots of message. I think it is, see, this word alone. Now you can say this, you can see these exact the words if you go to Behind the Wall website and find that he is telling this exactly same word, right? And also he said that during Father's Days, Mother's Days, for the Mother's Day, he will they send lots of cards to the mothers, but in the Father's Day, although the cards are given to them free, not a single card is sent, right? Why? They don't love their fathers. Why should they send the Father's Day card to them? So that tells you so much. So he says that I'm convinced that one common denominator among criminals, especially violent criminals, that they had no blessings, they had no father relationship, right? They don't get along with their fathers in their homes. Too many fathers really do not know how to bless their sons and daughters. That is the problem. Too many fathers do not know how to deal with the sons and daughters, how to just say, I love you, how to, they think that we need to earn money and give them the physical comfort, material comfort. No, those are not the things that is important for our children, right? As I said, I told you earlier, right? Whatever much I do, in fact, I practice with this, my son also, right? He also said the same thing, because I have given him enough. I have done a lot of, spent a lot of money for him. I have given everything possible. But if you ask him, what do you like more in me? He won't say that you gave me this much of money. You are allowing me to study the university without student loan. No, he never said that. In fact, I pay for him without taking a student loan. But he never mentioned that, because you are paying for me without studying, studying without student loan. He didn't mention that. But what he said was, he said the same. I just practice with him also. He also said that the fact that I love and respect my wife as his mother, that is the most important thing, he said. So these are the facts that we need to get to know. And with this, and also this, as a traditional families decline, fatherhood disappearing, prison population years saw over 1,000% in 30 years. Because what happened for the last 30 years? The family structure collapsed, right? And the fatherhood, when the family structure collapses, obviously the fatherhood collapses, right? So that is 1,000% increase in prison population in 30 years, right? This is the Behind the Walls charities study. It says, they say that currently 2.2 million people are locked up. Out of that, 2/3 reoffend and behind the bars within 3 years. So this is the Behind the Wall. You can see. So you communicate and bless with 3 things. He said that what you give to your children: love, value, belonging. Doesn't say money, right? It doesn't say money. There's no material in that. It's love, value, belonging. But for that, you need to spend quality time, have a great communication with the children, hug them and kiss them as much as you can, many times a day. They won't feel belong until their father is fully with them. They won't feel that unless father is with them. So I think I have said that there is a lot of my own experience. I have seen, I think there are a few things that I've already mentioned. And so, this we have seen. Oh, with this, I think I will finish. Very interesting. This Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah says, with that I will finish. Now this, I'll come to this ayah first, right? This in this Quranic ayah in Surah Yusuf, Allah says, وَكَأَيٍّ مِّنْ آيَةٍ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ يَمُرُّونَ عَلَيْهَا وَهُمْ عَنْهَا مُعْرِضُونَ. Allah says, there are so many ayat, so many signs, where so many miraculous signs for all these ayah. When you say ayah, there are signs for us to learn lessons. Here Allah says, وَكَأَيِّم مِّن آيَةٍ, so much of ayah, فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, in the universe and on the earth, in the creations. يَمُرُّونَ عَلَيْهَا. So we just pass it on. We just pass all these ayahs. We don't think, we don't reflect on these ayah. وَهُمْ عَنْهَا مُرِلُونَ, right? So what are these? One of these ayah, one of the fatherhood principles that we need to learn from Emperor Penguin, right? Let me just tell you a few things about this, and then we'll finish this, inshallah. The emperor penguin is the only penguin species that breeds during the Antarctic winter, right? It's maybe 6 feet tall, and it is the only penguin that breeds. So what happens is, you know, this in Antarctic winter, the temperature goes minus 40, 50, 60, 70, up to minus 70. But that is the time this the emperor penguin breeds, right? So what they do, they, away from the ocean, they tracks to up to 120 kilometers over the ice to breeding colonies, right? They don't do skiing or anything on that. They just walk for how many? The distance is up to 120 kilometers. Then what happens here is, see the responsibility. Here comes the mother's sacrifice and the father's responsibility. A beautiful example, a classical example. The mother lays eggs on the feet of father, and the father carries it constantly, covering with his tummy's belly's skin fold in the belly to keep the warm. So the mother delivers the egg on the feet of the father, right? Father takes over the responsibility now, because mother has done her job. Father takes over the responsibility and keep that, because that temperature of minus 70, the egg won't survive. So what does it do? If it leaves the egg on the floor off his feet, even few minutes, the egg is going to die. It's not going to become viable. So we want to keep it warm. How it keeps warm? We can't put it down, right? So it keeps on the feet, and with that, a covering from on the top, there's a skin fold covers the egg, right? So that keeps it like that. The father emperor penguin must withstand the Antarctic cold for more than 2 months to protect his eggs from extreme cold. He does it for 2 months, not just 1 or 2 days. During the entire time, during that 2 months, he doesn't eat a thing and drink nothing. And they lose about nearly 12 kilos while they wait 2 months for their babies to hatch. And also you find that to survive the cold and the winds of up to 250 kilometers per hour in that place. So what they do, the fathers huddle together. All the fathers come together, huddle together, and to keep them warm. The temperature can be minus 40 to 70. The egg must always be on the feet. If it falls off, it won't survive. So amazing thing is, in the huddle, when they do this huddle, they get all these hundreds of thousands of emperor penguin, all the fathers come together because they want to find a way out. Because the mother delivered the baby, delivered the egg, and they went back to the ocean. They are enjoying the sea now. They are not in the sea anymore. They are in the ocean, right? Catching fish. But the father, the moment that he took over the egg, he's not eating, he's not drinking, he's not doing anything. He is protecting this the egg to support the baby, right? And it huddles with other men to make sure that they all are together, right, with that community spirit to keep them warm in this very hostile environment. We live in a hostile environment. Of course, we live in a hostile environment, right? We need to protect our children. So we fathers, the responsible fathers, huddle together, just like this emperor penguin, and to make the community to protect our children and to make them a successful, productive children who contribute to nation building, who contribute to peace and prosperity here and the hereafter. See, one of the interesting thing in that huddle is, in the huddle, as you can imagine, the center part will be very warm, the peripheries will be cool. But what we do, we all will fight to go into that middle. But what happens here is, because this Allah's design, there's a constant movement where the peripheral, the penguins, the emperor penguins, fathers who are in the peripheries, they move in, and then whoever inside the core, the inner area, they move out. This process is constantly happening. So see, so what an amazing lesson to learn from this for our fatherhood. So the transfer of responsibility and taking responsibility is the part of the fatherhood, right? So I think that's enough for this session. From the next session, inshallah, I will start talking about fatherhood traits as described in the Quran, inshallah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saab. What an insightful session. A lot of things to think about for me personally, and I'm sure, for other fathers as well. And this actually brings to attention the significance of fatherhood, and what you were mentioning about the whole idea, the father's role in terms of creating or raising children with a very transformative mindset. One of the things that I kind of, this is something that I believe, this is my personal view, I don't know what other people think, but just to kind of echo what you are saying, is that our faith, Islam, is, our faith is a faith of princes, nawabs, and sultans. Yeah, I mean, some people might actually say, why are you saying about this? I'm not talking about the position. I'm not talking about material wealth. Now, we know that if we study any civilization, princes and rulers, they all go through a particular type of training in manners, in etiquettes, in all of the kind of the good traits that will make them great rulers and state builders and refined human beings. So one classic example, I know Confucius, for instance, he talks about creating this gentleman, for the Chinese civilization, he talks about those things. Now, I believe that our faith is such that it creates, even a person who is a farmer creates the same traits as the sultan should have, which is how to speak well, how to treat people well, how to organize themselves, how to be honest and hardworking, and be loyal, and be able to uphold justice, sacrifice, all of the good traits that make somebody a good human being. So in fact, somebody who follows the Islamic faith genuinely, they are sultans, they are rulers in effect. And so I think it's such an amazing thing. What you are actually referring to is actually we as fathers need to instill these values into our children, that our sons and daughters are actually princes and princesses. That's what we are creating, in a nutshell. So thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. Now, I know that there are a lot of comments and questions that have come up, and people have written those things, but there are also some people who have put their hand up, and I know that Brother Wazir from Guyana had his hand up for a while. So I'm going to actually ask Brother Wazir from Guyana to start off and with his comments. So Brother Wazir, can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Wa alaikum assalam.